Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Jaya Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Radhe Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. Can we go back to the translation of the previous one? Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance and classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as irrevocable fact. Om Jnanati Vinandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay. Alright, so today we're going to be reading from Canto 2, Chapter 9, verses 1 to 3. So only 3 verses. So the name of this chapter is Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So just a quick recap of the previous chapter, because we finished it yesterday. So this is chapter 9. So yesterday was chapter 8. And does anybody remember what the title of chapter 8 was? Yeah. Just yeah. Questions by King Parikshit. Yeah. So the previous chapter was pretty much just a list of questions that Maharaj Parikshit was asking Shukadeva Goswami. So, yeah, he's inquiring. So Maharaj Parikshit is inquiring from Shukadeva Goswami, and he's inquiring about how Narada Muni explained to his disciples and his followers about what was said to him by Lord Brahma, and then Lord Brahma got his information from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's explaining, like, this person's explaining to another person to another person. It's explaining. Does anybody remember any of the questions that Maharaj Parikshit asked in the previous chapter? The hint is that literally the entire chapter was questions. But does anybody remember one of the questions? It's okay if nobody remembers. Okay, well, some of the questions he was asking, a lot of them were kind of based around Vedic cosmology. So some of them were asking about what is time, what about living entities, what about different relations of time. He asked about super soul, he asked about how the modes of material nature act upon the living entities. So the entire question, it was a whole really, really long list of questions. So in chapter 9, he's going to start answering some of these questions for him. Yeah. Okay. So this is chapter 9, and it's called Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So Shukadeva Goswami starts answering these questions to Maharaj Parikshit. So, yes.
Just about the title, I'm kind of curious what it means by the Lord's Version.
The Lord's Version, I think it's... I think it's explained a little bit in the previous chapter. It was talking about how the way that the information is being passed down, it's like directly what the Lord said, because like Krishna speaks it to Brahma, and then Brahma speaks it to Narada Muni. Narada Muni is speaking it to his disciples, and that's what Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Maharaj Parikshit. So I think he's explaining it like from the direct conversation of the Lord. But if I'm...
Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Does anybody want to read text 1?
Sri Sukadev Goswami said, O king, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul and pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working.
The illusion living entity appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. While enjoying in the modes of material nature, the encaged living entity misconceives, thinking in terms of I and mine.
So in text 2, it's talking about it's talking about the illusion living entity appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. I thought this was really interesting when I was reading over these verses before. I think they touch on this more in text 3 also, but they're talking about how the illusory energy, or like the external energy, is it's kind of like creating clothes. So based on whatever clothes you want, it's like going to a tailor. So whatever desires you have, whatever clothes you want, it'll create that body for you. So the way that it's explaining it, it's talking about how, like, I mean, we're going to read the purports, but in the purports it's really like explaining how you cannot like identify with like these clothes that the illusory energy are giving you. Like the same way we're not identifying with like the sari I'm wearing or the dhoti you're wearing. So it's a bit, Somebody wants to read text 3.
As soon as the living entity becomes situated in its constitutional glory and begins to enjoy the transcendence beyond time and material energy, he at once gives up the two misconceptions of life, I and mine, and thus becomes fully manifested as the pure self.
This term, like pure self, it comes up quite a few times. So I think in text 1, which is like the one we're going to read, they're talking about how like there's no point in having like a pure self if there's no relation to Krishna. So here it's talking about the pure consciousness. Yeah. Anyways, continue. Yeah, we can go to text 1. Yeah.
Read the verse? Or you want to? Sri Sukha Uvacha.
I can read it.
Okay.
if you want. Yeah. I'm just gonna read the line and then you can repeat after. Sri Sukha Uvacha. Atma Maya Mrite Rajan. Parasyanu Bhavat Manaha. Nagate Tarta Sambandha Swapna Drastur Ivanjasa. Shri Sukha Uvacha Atma Maya Mrite Rajan Parasyanu Bhavat Manaha Nagate Tarta Sambandha Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa. Somebody want to read it? Repeat. Shri Sukha Uvacha Atmamaya Mrite Rajan Parasanubhavatmana. Nagati tatarasandana. Swapna jastu ivandasa. Shri Shukha Vacha. Atmamaya Mritirajam. Parasanubhavatmana. Swapna jastu ivandasa. Shri Shukha Vacha. Atmamaya Mritirajam. Parasanubhavatmana. Yate tata sambhava. Swapna jastu ivandasa. Sumerubi? Shri Shukha Vacha. Atmamaya Mritirajam. Thank you. You can go to the synonyms. Shri Shuka. Atma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mayam, energy. Vite, without. Rajan, O King. Parasya, of the pure soul. Anubhava Atmana, of the purely conscious. Na, never. Gateta, can also happen. Oh, it can still happen. Relation with the material body. Swapna, dream. Jastu, of the seer. Eva, light. Anjasa, completely. Okay. I'm just going to read the translation again. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, O King, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working. So here it's talking about how the pure soul and pure consciousness, it's saying that there's no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul and pure consciousness with the material body. When I was reading this, I was like a little bit confused, to be honest. I was thinking, if the soul is pure and if the consciousness is pure, like what is the problem? But then when I read a bit more into it, I was realizing, oh, okay, there's no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. The material body no longer matters once you're in that state of pure consciousness. So I know we talk about how there's like pure devotees and like there's different examples given of what a pure devotee is like, but bless you. So the pure devotee, their soul is pure and their consciousness is pure. So they might be in a physically in a material body, but they don't have any actual relationship to that material body. And in text 2 and 3, they talk about the I and mine. So people identify themselves as I am, I am a student, I am a young person, and then mine, like this is my body. These are my things. All of this is mine. So those would be, if somebody in pure consciousness would not have those types of connections, like the I and mine. And at the end it says that relationship is just like a dreamer seeing his own body working. So you're not fully, if you're a dreamer, you're not fully attached to your body. So you're seeing your body working and you're seeing your body doing things. You're going to school, you're going to class, you're going to work, you're doing whatever. But it's just like your body working and you're not really attached to it. You're not really like there, you're not really present. You're just sort of viewing yourself functioning. So it's talking about somebody in pure consciousness. It would be a similar idea. You're not really present in the sense of you're not attached to your physical body and the material things that come with that. If somebody wants to read the first paragraph of the purport, it explains a bit better.
Maharaj Parikshit's question as to how a living entity began its material life, although he is apart from the material body and mind, is perfectly answered. The spirit soul is distinct from the material conception of his life, but he is absorbed in such a material conception because he is being influenced by the external energy of the Lord, called Atma Maya. This has already been explained in the first canto in connection with Vyasadev's realization of the Supreme Lord and his external energy. The external energy is controlled by the Lord, and the living entities are controlled by the external energy, by the will of the Lord. Therefore, although the living entity is purely consciousness in his pure state, he is subordinate to the will of the Lord and being influenced by the external energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, also the same thing is confirmed. The Lord is present within the heart of every living entity, and all the living entities' consciousness and forgetfulness are influenced by the Lord.
So this verse in Bhagavad Gita, I don't know, just anyway, you probably have it memorized. 15, 15.
Sarvasya chaham Vidisani vishta matasmitir jnanam apohanam cha Vedaisya sarvarham eva vedya vedanta gridveda videva chaham.
So this verse, it's talking, the line that it's referring to is, I am seated in everyone's heart. From me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So it's talking about how in the pure state, like the soul's pure state, and when they're in when your soul is in pure consciousness, you don't forget Krishna. You don't forget. You're not covered by these external energies. But then it's also saying that this is all happening by the will of the Lord. So Krishna brings forgetfulness here. So he said, in the purport it says, therefore, although the living entity is purely conscious in his pure state, he is subordinate to the will of the Lord. And he's being influenced by the external energy of the Lord. He's being influenced by the forgetfulness. He's forgetting his true purpose, and he's forgetting his true identity. And Krishna is that forgetfulness. Krishna is that that energy. So, I also like the part where it says, the external energy is controlled by the Lord, and the living entities are controlled by the external energy. But it's all by the will of the Lord. So, we were talking about this the other day. We were talking about, I think, impersonalists and Mayavadis, and we were talking about how some of them think that the illusory energy, or illusion, could be higher than Krishna, because Krishna is a person, but Krishna is being covered by these illusory energies. So they believe Maya to be higher than that. But here it's saying that no, Krishna is in control of all these illusory energies. Krishna is in control of the external energy. But then us, being living entities, we're still under that control, and we're still being affected. But all of this is happening by the will of Krishna. So even if we're in that pure state, Krishna is still 100% controlling all of our lives. And it's just a matter of remembering and getting past the forgetfulness that Krishna brings. Does somebody want to read the second paragraph?
Now the next question automatically made will be why the Lord influences the living entity to such consciousness and forgetfulness. The answer is that the Lord clearly wishes that every living entity be in his pure consciousness as a part and parcel of the Lord, and thus be engaged in the loving service of the Lord as he is constitutionally made. But because the living entity is partially independent also, he may not be willing to serve the Lord, but may try to become as independent as the Lord is. All the non-devotee living entities are desirous of becoming equally as powerful as the Lord, although they are not fit to become so. The living entities are illusioned by the will of the Lord because they wanted to become like him. Like a person who thinks of becoming a king without possessing the necessary qualification, when the living entity desires to become the Lord himself, he is put in a condition of dreaming that he is a king. Therefore, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord, and the consequent will of the Lord is that the living entity forget his factual life and thus dream of the land of utopia where he may become one like the Lord. The child cries to have the moon from the mother, and the mother gives the child a mirror to satisfy the crying and disturbing child with the reflection of the moon. Similarly, the crying child of the Lord is given over to the reflection, the material world, to lord it over as karmi and give up in frustration to become one with the Lord. Both these stages are dreaming illusions only. There is no necessity of tracing out the history of when the living entity desired this, but the fact is that as soon as he desired it, he was put under the control of Atma Maya by the direction of the Lord. Therefore, the living entity in its material condition is dreaming falsely that this is mine and this is I. The dream is that the conditioned soul thinks of his material body as I, or falsely thinks that he is the Lord, and that everything in connection with that material body is mine. Thus, only in dream does the misconception of I and mine persist life after life. This continues life after life, as long as the living entity is not purely conscious of his identity as a subordinate part and parcel of the Lord.
Thank you.
In his pure consciousness, however, there is no such misconceived dream, and in that pure conscious state, the living entity doesn't forget that he is never the Lord, but that he is eternally the servitor of the Lord in transcendental love.
Does anybody have any thoughts on the paragraph? Yeah. Yes, just so you know.
I had a thought. It was interesting saying that sometimes there's a little bit of confusion on kind of like what the history of the soul is, but it's at least from what I remember reading, it was saying that the living entity forgets their factual life, and it's like they had a life before. And I just thought it was interesting to hear Prabhupada talk about basically how we ended up here, and how the first mistake that we made was wanting to become the Lord.
Bless you. Yeah, I like that it kind of clears up that confusion. I know that there's some controversy sometimes around this topic, but he really clears up that like we had those desires, and we're just pretty much we're here, and Krishna's allowing us to fulfill those desires. He's giving us forgetfulness because we wanted forgetfulness, in a sense, because we wanted to be the controller. We wanted to be extremely independent. We wanted all of those things. We wanted to go away from our nature. So Krishna is so merciful. He decided, okay, well, I will let you forget who you really are, and you can enjoy all of these things. It's talking about the external energy grants the living entity whatever costume it wants to put on based on whatever desires they have. And yeah, I liked also it's saying, like, this is why we believe in these terms as I or mine. It's that forgetfulness again. Krishna helps us forget because we want to forget, and we're going to spend lifetime after lifetime trying to remember. And we're going to keep continuing until we get to that point of pure consciousness that it talks about in the verse. Once you get to that point of pure consciousness, you're no longer the dreamer looking at the body. You're now in the body. You're now present. You're actually like realized who you really want to be. And it's saying the living entity in pure consciousness, the living entity does not forget that he is the eternal servant of the Lord. The dream is gone. So all of these identifications, the things that I'm saying are mine, and I am this, I am that, they all leave once you pass. And yeah. Does anybody have any thoughts on things that they would identify themselves as now? I know it's kind of... Oh, I will.
So, in purport it mentions how pure devotees, they do not identify themselves with the material bodies. So I was just thinking, within our society there are several leaders, ISKCON leaders, who have been incessantly, carrying on with their wonderful service, all of them, but especially when I think of Jayapataka Goswami, all of us we know, how physically he's been challenged, and continuously he's been traveling. He's intensified it even more, actually, all the more. So, as Srimad Bhagavatam says, right, Savai Punsam Parodharmo, there are two things, right, unmotivated and apratihata, uninterrupted. So, that kind of vouches, how these pure devotees, they are continuously, incessantly working for Krishna. So we should be grateful. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's how you know that the pure devotees are the living entities that are in pure consciousness, like these devotees who are like spending their entire life for preaching. These people are in pure consciousness, like Jayapataka Maharaj, like he's in a wheelchair, and despite all of that, he's not saying, oh, this is my body and I am, in this physical condition. He's continuing his service, he's continuing things. Yeah, we have to have so much gratitude for these devotees, because they're really like living examples of not identifying with the body anymore. Or even yesterday when we were out on book distribution, I was talking to those two girls, and remember I was saying, I was talking about Srila Prabhupada, and I was saying, Srila Prabhupada was born in 1896, and he came to the United States, and these are all people that he's not familiar with. It's the crowd he's not familiar with. And he was preaching and speaking to people that he normally wouldn't have spoken to, like as a sannyasi or anything, or people that would, by societal standards, at least in India, would be considered degraded or whatever. And despite all of that, like he just didn't see, like, that he saw that these are people who are potential devotees. These are people who could potentially have their consciousness purified. These are living entities. So that's another example of like a devotee who's in pure consciousness, and he's not saying I, mine, any of this. And we were talking yesterday with those two girls. Jose was there, and I was telling them, like, if somebody didn't have something of value to offer, then they wouldn't have done that. So, yeah, it's again like the gratitude that you were saying. Just so much gratitude that these people are so, like, not people, these devotees are like on such a high platform that they've really embodied what it's talking about here in this verse. They really showed what it looks like to be in pure consciousness, what it looks like to have purified soul and not identifying with this. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Anything?
Often our language speaks about our consciousness. Like, for instance, I say that this is my family, so I have a, consciousness that this is my family. So I'm wondering, it says that the pure devotee no longer identifies with I or mine. Mm-hmm. So I was curious that as devotees, why not take away these uses of words in our language, basically? Why do I say, like somebody says, what are you driving today? And I say, this is my car. Or should I say, this is Krishna's car, and I'm using it. So that's my question is should somebody take away from their language the words I and mine, basically?
I think it's not so much the language you're using is just like a way of communicating. So I don't know, if somebody tries to take my phone, I'm not going to be like don't take Krishna's phone. I'll be like, hey, don't take my phone, because it's something I bought, it's whatever. But that doesn't mean that I'm so attached to it that like it's consuming my life. Like, I'm not going to identify with my phone. I'm not going to be like, this is my phone. Without my phone, I'm nothing. Like, it's pretty much anything that goes away at the time of death. There's no need to like overly identify with those things. It's the mentality and it's the thought behind it. You can still say like, oh hi, like my name is, or I am, but yeah, or you can say I am nationality or I am race, whatever. But it's not something that you would identify with internally. It's not a box that you're personally putting yourself like into. It's just sort of more of a way of communication. So I can say, I am Dina Tarini and I am Canadian, something like that. But like internally, what I'm trying to, at least what I'm striving towards identifying with is like my soul and who my actual identity is. Not just this, but that doesn't mean that like I'm going to throw away my passport and I'm going to say, oh, I don't exist. Because then at that point, that's not, like living entity is still an individual. And you were given this body due to your previous karma. So this is still you, but it's not the truest version of you. I don't know if that helps or if that's makes it more confusing.
So in actions, we might external actions might seem like I and mine, but internally we understand that it's all Krishna's.
Yeah.
So for instance, like we can't just use an excuse to be like, to take somebody's phone and say, this is Krishna's phone, it's not really your phone.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're still a thief here. Like that's their person's. Yeah.
Yeah, like what we were talking about in Gita class yesterday. We can't use devotional service as an excuse. So you can't use like saying, oh, I'm on a pure platform, I don't use I and mine. That means everything is mine, or that means nothing is mine. That's fake renunciation, or that's exploiting terminology like this. Does anybody have any other questions?
I don't know if it's a question, but like it happened to me, and I see a lot of people like it's like a children. I think it's natural that they like, when they're growing up and they have like toys or whatever and friends, they get to this like creating this I and mine, and it's very strong. And so I don't know how would I react having a children and like seeing that. I mean, how can how can we understand that situation? That's my question. I don't know if it's a question, but
I think it's nice. The example of the children is really good because, I mean, we've spent we're like children, so we've spent lifetime after lifetime, and we're learning this I and mine. We're learning, we're like children, like you're saying, when kids they start discovering proprietorship and they start discovering these things, they're like, oh, this is my toy, you can't play with my toy, Or they said, oh, I am 6 years older, I am 3, they say that really strongly, and we're doing the same thing because, and then with maturity, you learn, okay, this is my toy, but my mom bought it for me, or this is mine, but I'm sharing it with my friends, stuff like that. So it's the same with us, we're maturing, and it's saying until you, this will continue lifetime after lifetime, us identifying with I and mine, until we come to that pure state of consciousness. So I would like to think that most of the people here are slowly realizing that maybe not everything is I and mine, but the example of the kids is wonderful, because that's what we are. And different people in different stages of Krishna consciousness are like different kids in different stages of maturity. So hopefully we can work our way up towards being a little bit more.
I was really liking when you said that, you get a maturity that this is my toy, but my parents gave it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really it kind of answers the last question too. In maturity, it is mine, but Krishna gave it to me.
Yeah.
So it's not really mine. It's his gift. It's the consciousness becomes more about the gift that he gave into you instead of it being, mine and I got to protect it or can't give it away or nothing like that. I thought that was a really cool example, cool thought.
Thank you.
I kind of had the question that, like, in our day-to-day life, sometimes I ask, like, when should you speak something that's, like, for example, one time, I believe this was with Garga Muni, Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada, and so Srila Prabhupada walks in the room, everyone bows down except for Garga Muni, and Srila Prabhupada is like, why didn't you bow down? And Garga Muni said, oh, I didn't have that feeling. I didn't feel it inside that I should. And he said, bow down anyways, and the feeling will come. So I'm also wondering, like, with this language of like, oh, this is Krishna's, or oh, I'm just a servant. Even if we don't feel that in our heart, should we still say it? Or is that, like, not genuine? Is that beyond our realization if we speak like that? Or is it like, oh, this will help us to eventually one day think like that?
I mean, it's similar to Nandabaja's question. Like, it's just like the words that we're using are just words that we're using, like, to identify those things as what they are, but the mentality you have towards those items is completely different. It doesn't need to be an external show, like every time, I don't know, every time you give out prasadam, you're like, oh, this is Krishna. I mean, that's not a good example. But if you, like, refer to every item as, oh, this is Krishna's, that could be an internal thing. It doesn't have to be an external thing. And like what you were saying about the paying obeisances, like, if you keep telling yourself internally, this is Krishna's, then that realization will come. It's not false realization. But saying it externally seems a little bit, I mean, this could just be opinion, but saying it externally all the time could maybe be, like, come across as beyond realization. Because that's just how the English language works. You identify those things in those ways. But I don't know. If you were looking for, like, a more in-depth answer. Who has a question? Thank you. Yeah. It's true. Those are so, like, that's something that you want to take pride in. You want to take pride in, like, Krishna consciousness. You want to take pride in your spiritual master. You want to take pride in all of those things. So, yeah, I think you're right. If it's something spiritual, then you should want to take pride in it. If it's something material, if it's saying, like, oh, this is my laptop, then there's nothing to. That's so false. There's nothing to be proud of there. But if I'm saying, I don't know, yeah, something else. Different. Or I dressed the deities today, something like that. I don't see how that would be wrong. Yeah, it's turning everything into Krishna conscious, turning everything into Krishna service. Okay, I think I'm 2 minutes over time. So. Srila Bhagavatam ki jai. Oh, Srila Bhagavatam. Thank you, everybody. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.